What's up guys, this is Mr. Erdogan here, and you are watching episode 6 of Learning How to Read Music. In my last episode, we were looking at this rhythm here, and I left you with the challenge of finding two things: the most likely time signature and the bar that probably has a mistake and incorrect number of beats. So let's have a closer look at our rhythm. The time signature here is incomplete, and the first bar has a quarter, half, a quarter, an eighth, and another eighth note. The second bar is a single whole note. The third bar has a half, a quarter, and another quarter note. And the fourth bar has 4/8, a half note, and a quarter note. So the first thing you need to do to find the answer to this question is go through our music math routine for each of the bars and find the total amount of beats in each bar. Then we can move forward to try and make our guess. So let's look at the first bar. We have 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 0.5 plus 0.5. So that all adds up to 5 beats. In bar 2, that's just a whole note, which simply equals 4 beats. In bar 3, we have 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, which all equals 5 beats. And in bar 4, we have 4/8 notes, which in total equals 2 beats. Then another 2 beats, then 1 beat at the end, which adds up to 5 beats. So with this information in front of us, would you be able to guess what our time signature should be and which bar has the mistake in it? Well, if you said our time signature should be 5/4, you would be correct. Now remember, when we're talking about time signatures, the top number is the number that dictates how many beats are in each bar. And so if our time signature is 5/4, that would mean bar 2, which only has 4 beats, would be the bar that is incorrect. Now if you said the time signature must have been 4/4 and there were mistakes in every bar except bar 2, well, you wouldn't be horribly incorrect, because that would be possible if the time signature was 4/4. But I did say that there would only be a single bar that is different from the others. So in this example, the single bar that is different from the rest is bar 2, and the amount of beats in every other bar is 5, making our time signature 5/4. So how did you guys do with that challenge? Did you figure out both the time signature and the incorrect bar? Let me know how you did in the comments below. Or if you had any problems, leave me a question. I'll see if I can help you understand it better. Now you might be thinking, what about the bottom number? And just like I said in the last episode, we're not going to be worrying about that probably until season 2 of this series, because it's kind of a complicated topic and I'm going to cover that in a later episode in the future. And as a beginner, the bottom number will always pretty much be a 4. And you can just ignore it for now, as it's not going to change for you for a little while. As a beginner, you may see the top number change occasionally. Most of the time there will be a 4 on top, making the time signature 4/4, or there might be a 2 on top, making our time signature 2/4, or even a 3 or 5 on top, making our time signature 3/4 and 5/4. And just so you know, when you're actually saying the time signature, we don't say 3/4 or 4/4. These aren't fractions. We say 4/4, 3/4, 2/4, 5/4, and so on. Okay, let's move on to our lesson for today. Now, if you've watched all my episodes in this series so far and have been paying attention, you will remember that I said the word note can mean different things. So far, we've been using the meaning of the word that tells us how long to play our sounds for. But now we're going to talk about the meaning of the word where it tells us whether or not we're playing a high-pitched sound or a low-pitched sound. And here's a popular song that many of you may know called Hot Cross Buns. This is a great example of how music is written out, and this may actually be one of the first songs you ever play while reading music. Now, you should probably recognize a bunch of things from this song, because we've already gone over a number of these things. We have our quarter notes here, we have half notes here, and a bunch of eighth notes put together here. Also, we have a time signature here that we've recently learned about. But this piece of music is very different from the other pieces of music that we've looked at in the past, because instead of having our music written on a single line, we now have our notes written on these 5 lines. This group of 5 lines where you find your notes actually has a special name, and it's called a musical staff, or just a staff for short. And this is where all the notes we've already learned would go to tell a musician if they need to be playing a high-pitched sound or a low-pitched sound. And that's exactly what we're seeing here with Hot Cross Buns. Now we're going to put Hot Cross Buns on hold for a moment and look at a blank musical staff by itself. So as I said, where you find the notes on the staff will tell you if you're playing high-pitched notes or low-pitched notes. And so if you see a note that is placed higher up on the staff, you'll know that that note is going to be a higher sounding note. And if you see a note that is placed lower on the staff, that note is going to be playing a lower sound. Easy enough, right? Higher means higher and lower means lower. So if we were to place a note on this line and then another note on this space, which note would be the higher sounding note, and which note would be the lower sounding note based on what I just said? Well, in this case, the first note, which is on our second line, would be our lower sounding note. And the second note, which is on our fourth space, is our higher sounding note, simply because it is physically higher on the staff than the first one. Now, what about these next two notes? This one is on this space, and this one is on this line. Which one is higher and which one is lower? Well, if you said that this one is higher and this one is lower, you would be correct, simply because the higher note is physically higher on the staff and the lower note is physically lower on the staff. Okay, back to Hot Cross Buns. So this particular piece of music has only 3 notes that we use. And I'm not talking about whether or not it's a quarter note or half note or eighth note or whole note. I'm talking about the pitches that are used in this song. The way we can tell that there are only 3 separate pitches being played in this song is by looking at the notes and following along the lines and spaces and seeing which ones are being used and which ones aren't. So if we look at the first note that lands on the middle line, our third line, I can follow that line all the way across and see that this pitch is played only 3 times. Once here, and once here. If I look at the second note, the note that is on this space here, I can follow along and see that this pitch is played 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if I look at the third note and follow along with the music, I can see that this note is also played 7 times. But if we look along other lines or spaces, we will see that there are no other notes being played, just 3 pitches. So to be able to play this song, all you need to know are these 3 notes. And if you play the recorder and haven't learned this song yet, go ahead and check out my video on Hot Cross Buns on the recorder. I'll link that in the top right corner as well as in the description of this video below. I also have a few videos that you can watch where I talk about other songs that you can learn with the same 3 notes. I'll link that in the top right and below in the description. Anyways, now let's practice a bit more. Here is a blank staff. I'm going to draw 5 different notes on them. We don't have to worry about the names of the notes yet, but I want to figure out which are higher sounding notes and which are the lower sounding notes. Okay, so if you remember, I said the notes that are physically higher on the staff will always be higher pitched, and the notes that are physically lower on the staff will always sound lower pitched. Then we should have a pretty good idea of which of these notes are higher or lower. So since this note here is sitting on top of the staff, and this note here is almost at the top of the staff, do you think these notes are going to be higher sounding notes or lower sounding notes? Well, if you said higher, you would be correct. Now this note here is really low, sitting below the lowest line on our staff, and this other one is a little bit above that, but it's still below the rest. So based on what we know, I would say these 2 notes are the lowest sounding notes because they're physically the lowest on our staff. And finally, this one is smack dab right in the middle, so I would say it's neither high or low. So how are you following along so far? Doing okay? If so, it's time to move on to your challenge of the day. Okay, here is your challenge for this episode. What you're looking at here is a normal staff with 5 notes spread throughout the staff. What I want you to figure out is the following 3 things. Which note is the highest pitch note? Which note is the lowest pitch note? And which note is in the middle? Feel free to comment below with your answers once you find them. And just like always, you'll have to tune into my next episode to find out the answers to this challenge. As usual, guys, if you're having any difficulties and have any questions, please put them in the comments below. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that now, and don't forget to like this video if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next episode.